I'm Lizzy.
And I'm Izzy, and we need help.
Each week we stumble through a new book, method, or concept that brings us one step closer to being our best self.
Yes, we make fun of ourselves.
And others.
But mostly just ourselves. So here's to not taking self-help quite so seriously.
Welcome to We Need Help. I'm Lizzy.
And I'm Izzy, and we need defense mechanisms. Or do we?
Do we or don't we? I'm going to tell you, it hasn't always worked out when I've used them. I'm just going to say, defense mechanisms are how you react, or is it it's how you react rather than respond, right?
Yeah, I would say that. It's basically like they're established in childhood. So when we feel threatened, we do certain things to protect ourselves. So, and they're not necessarily like the healthiest things, right? So we don't know any better. Like as children, we just want to feel protected and safe. So we just create sort of this like world around us. Like we react in certain ways that we think will help us feel safe. But then as we get into adulthood, sometimes these defense mechanisms don't serve us necessarily.
I can guarantee these defensive mechanisms have put me in some weird positions over the years. So I'm excited. We were talking about defense mechanisms and how I can really go into pleaser mode, and you were kind of trying to like vanilla coach me in it because it's something you know a lot about and you do coachings on. And then you were so nice enough to offer a free coaching to me today.
Yeah. So there's two parts to this coaching. So the first part is just recognizing what are my defense mechanisms, which in the coaching world, I call them saboteurs, because they serve us in some way, but then as you get older, it's almost like we're defending ourselves too much. And we're like unable to see the truth in certain things because we're so afraid of getting hurt. So we put those defense mechanisms up and they end up like self-sabotaging us. So the first part is sort of like recognizing what your saboteurs are, what they are to you, because they're different for everybody. And then the second part is, so now that I recognize this, like, what can I do about it? Right. So
you sent me a test and I had to take this test. And it was very interesting to even because you're supposed to knee-jerk reaction. You're just supposed to click the answer. And I did. I didn't try to manipulate it, which I'm pretty sure was a saboteur. But so let's do it. Let's do this.
Let's do it. So first, let's do like this intro to what the saboteurs are. So for our listeners, if you can like click us on YouTube and watch this, because it's going to be like a whole PowerPoint presentation. Gotta love the PowerPoint. So I'm going to share my screen.
Let's do this.
Okay.
And for anybody who can't go on YouTube, it's still going to be interesting because she'll tell you everything we're talking about, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So where did these saboteurs come from? Why are there so many? Like, who the hell thought of this name, saboteur? So there's this guy, I took a coaching course from him. His name is Shirzad Shamin. And he wrote this book called Positive Intelligence. And he basically was studying the way he's a researcher, which I love because Brene Brown's a researcher and I love all her books, and Shirzad is a researcher as well. And he started researching people's reactions to stress and like what goes on in the brain. So he wrote this book called Positive Intelligence, and his book is very credible. I mean, his research is, more than 500,000 participants, and this is CEOs, students, athletes, all different kinds of people. So he was researching how the brain reacts in stressful situations.
Okay.
And what he came up with was, he calls it the PQ quotient, which is the percentage of time that your brain sabotages you and the percentage of time that your brain serves you. Okay. So, when something negative happens, what goes on in your brain, right? And what he discovered was that there's 10 negative reactions when something bad happens, which is called the saboteur reaction, right? And there's 10 different ways, right, that we react. There's only 5 positive ways to react.
Well, that makes it easy.
Yeah, I know. It's like, why does our brain automatically spiral down? Like
well, I'm guessing it's out of, can I just make a guess? I think it's probably because we had to survive.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So it's more of a reptilian response, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You hit the nail on the head. Gold star.
There's so many ways to die.
Yeah.
That's why.
Exactly. Like, it's actually not a bad thing, that we're constantly looking for threats and we're afraid, because it helps us survive. It helps us move forward. Like, discomfort promotes us to create things, invent. So it's not a horribly bad thing. Where it starts getting in the way is when minor inconveniences happen, disagreements, and our reaction just kind of gets overblown and we start spiraling downwards. It really affects our joy and our well-being. Right. And it's funny because I was thinking about this, I never spiral upwards, it's always the downward spiral. Right.
Yeah. Well, there is no upward spiral.
There's no uphill avalanche. It's always downhill. Buried under
let's
the
make
snow.
a commitment to have
I got my thing. I hope
upwards.
So yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's the reptilian brain. So we have something called the amygdala, which is constantly scanning for threats. Yay. It's a fun thing. So when's the other shoe going to drop? What's going to happen? It's constantly scanning for threats. And you're correct. In the olden days, we used to have to worry about bears, finding shelter, food.
Yeah.
Nowadays we have all that stuff, but our amygdala is still scanning for threats. It's looking for.
Well, I actually don't think people in poor communities do have all of that. So it's very easy to get locked in there when you start out in that environment.
Exactly. Maslow's, pyramid of needs, right? Your first thing is the fear. Okay, I don't have any food and stuff like that. Your amygdala is going to be looking for those threats.
Right.
As a culture, we're not as threatened as we used to be when we were hunting for bears or looking for shelter. So social threats are becoming a fear, oh my God, what does he think of me? Oh my God, he's offending me. These are the threats that our amygdala is dealing with. And then we have this whole huge part, and I'm simplifying here very much, but we have this huge part of our brain called the limbic system, that's our emotional center.
Well, and that's basically what we do. We simplify everything on this podcast.
There's 3 parts to the brain, and that's it.
And you don't have to worry about anything else.
We got the fear center, we got the emotion center, and then we got the thinking center, and that's it.
And don't bother using that third one.
Yeah, third one sucks. It's no fun at all.
Oh my God.
So emotional brain, raging. And then we have the prefrontal cortex, which is just this little, that's the voice in your head that takes you off don't jump. You have something to live for. It's going to be okay. It's that rational, calming down part of the brain.
It's the one that's not a cunt.
It's the one where the 5 positive responses are located, right? And then you got the huge chunk of the brain where everything else. And just think of it like an automatic reaction. If you're driving your car and some asshole cuts you off, you're feeling fear because he's going to kill me and my kids, fuck you. And then the emotional part, what an asshole. And then kicks in the prefrontal, maybe he's in a hurry. It's okay. Nothing really happened, but it's not that first instinct.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good news. Here's some good news.
Do you think it's probably a bad sign when somebody pulls in front of me and I apologize for being on the road?
You're way over. Yeah, your defense mechanism.
I'm sorry.
Don't hate me. Don't hate me.
So sorry I exist.
Oh, that is hilarious. Yeah, and we'll get into that in a second. But
okay.
The good news is these responses, these negative responses that are sort of panic responses and anger responses, and generally negative responses, they can be worked on so they don't eat away at us so much, right? Your brain is a muscle. So whatever part you train of it gets stronger. So we can actually
learn to use it against myself because in a good way.
Yeah.
I have vanity.
Yeah.
Like I've taken that and that's the only reason I'm healthy.
Yeah.
Because I want to look good.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that too, because some of our saboteurs have helped us in life.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about that. So are you ready to meet your saboteurs?
Yes, let's do this.
Okay. So origin, like I mentioned, childhood, right? Should happen to us in childhood. We learned a way of thinking, feeling, reacting that just became encoded in our little child brain. And we took all that baggage into our wonderful adulthood, right? As I mentioned, the good news, it doesn't necessarily mean it's like a hard save on our hard drive. Like it's almost like a soft save, and we can save over it with other behaviors and other ways of thinking. So these saboteurs,
unless you're like me and it's just worked for me, it's like perfection.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So there's the universal. Let's get into the saboteurs. Let's just get into them. There's the universal saboteur, which is called the judge. And this is just the main saboteur. It's that general, non-specific, negative inner voice, right? Beats you up for mistakes. So if you make a mistake, he says, God, that was really stupid. Warns you about whatever, any future risks, wakes you up in the night worrying. I don't know if you've had a stressful time in your life and you wake up in the middle of the night just panicked.
Yeah, I've had that before.
The 4 a.m. wake up in the like washing machine brain. That's the judge, right?
Yeah.
Fixating on what's wrong with others, what's wrong with yourself. The imposter syndrome. I don't know if you have that.
Oh God, I've had it a million times.
Yeah.
A million times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have it in podcasting. We've done 100 episodes and I still don't feel like I belong here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, we've done this 100 times. It's like, we're doing it.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because I've done loads of research on imposter syndrome, and about 85% of the population has it. Lady Gaga has it, which I love her for like being so open about it. And this is like a direct quote from her. She says, I still sometimes feel like a loser kid in high school, and I just have to pick myself up and tell myself that I'm a superstar every morning so that I can get through this day and be for my fans what they need me to be. Like Lady Gaga tells herself, like, I'm still this loser from high school.
Like if Lady Gaga can be a loser, so can you. Like, it's okay.
It's not imposter syndrome. You really do suck at everything. And Maya Angelou, God bless her soul, but she also had imposter syndrome. She admitted it, that she's written 11 books, but every time she thinks, okay, they're going to find out now I'm a horrible writer. Like I'm going to wake up in the morning and they're going to be like, this lady's a sham, right? They're going to find me out. So that's really interesting. Like successful people have it. Yeah.
But this is the people that compare.
Yeah.
Is there like, she's better than me or she's worse than me? Is that the judge?
I think, yeah, that's the judge as well. That's the judge as well. It's in the whole, like the all-inclusive package of the judge is that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is that where is the judge in there? And I'm not going to is she, obviously I'm making her, is she somebody who like worries about what other people think of her?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Just general anxiety.
Ooh,
general
this
fear.
judge is
It's
brutal.
that horrible inner voice that if your inner voice was a roommate, you would have kicked him out long ago. Like you would not have allowed somebody to talk to you the way that your inner voice talks to you. Right.
Okay.
Imposter syndrome is just part of that whole package that the judge has to offer. Right. So here they're going to find out. Maciek, he was the VP of emerging markets for Disney Television. And he always said like, I just got really lucky with personal assistance. Like he thought he made his way because, or like he never claimed his successes to be his own. That's imposter syndrome,
I used to have this like saying that like whenever somebody says they're lucky, I'm always like, are you sure you're not just brave?
Yeah. Or smart or,
like just to put your neck out there because it's so terrifying. And like Daring Greatly, which is my favorite book of all time for self-help. It's like you have to probably fight this judge pretty hard to like go out there and be seen. It's fucking terrifying to tell the truth.
It is
about yourself.
And I think the first step is recognizing that it is just that inner voice that isn't real, right? That, it's not real, right? It's just telling you something that's not true, right?
Okay.
And it's really hard. And I think you could probably attest to this. A lot of moms have imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing? I'm not a mother. Like, what am I doing?
Well, it's funny because there's a lot of bad moms out there, obviously.
It's not imposter syndrome. You are a shitty mom.
You actually are a shitty mom. It's like there's a lot of great moms out there, but there's a lot of moms that are pretty, like, they're a little sus. It's not like, because this is, and I'm not judging anybody because I can't, like, I couldn't name one now, but there's a lot of shitty people in the world. That's how I know.
Yeah. 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 And I think,
is that the judge
of others? But I think a lot of people are shitty because they don't recognize, and here's what we're doing. They don't recognize the way they sabotage themselves and others, because saboteurs not only sabotage your own well-being, but they can sabotage people around you. And so we're going to look at,
especially under their umbrella.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So we're going to meet all the saboteurs. There's 9 of them that sort of work for the judge. So if you think of the judge as like the director, like Satan, these are like his henchmen, and they all are a little bit specific and they all differ a little bit from everyone. And if you take the saboteur assessment, it'll tell you percentage wise how much of each saboteur you have. So I'm totally interested in which ones you have. So we're going to start with the first one, which is hypervigilant. So this one has continuous intense anxiety and suspicion about everything that can go wrong. Distrust of people, right? Going into a situation, they will distrust rather than trust. So I don't think you have too much of this one.
I have the opposite of it. It's like, it's to a fault. But I mean, I have people in my life that are like this that I love, and it is absolutely exhausting to be around.
It is.
Absolutely. They're such downers, and I always try to like frame it as their gift is to really, find the leaky spots, in the roof, but man, it's exhausting. Yeah.
So here's the thing everyone has to know about saboteurs. They help us to a point, but when they get, the reason the word hyper is in there, because it's good to be vigilant. Hyper is in there because it goes over the top, and it starts impeding our ability to enjoy life. So Maciek has hypervigilant. The reason he had this is because he grew up in a very chaotic household. So he always had to be on alert, and he could never relax because it was, the household he grew up in, something could always go wrong. So he was always on alert. And that's where it comes from. If a child feels like they always have to be on alert because, bam, they can get smacked in the face from nowhere. They can't enjoy anything because they can, they're always going to be tense waiting for the shoe to drop. So this is where hypervigilant comes from. And I will explain to you in a way, like Maciek and I live in the countryside, and there's a firing range. When we drive to the countryside, there's a firing range close to here.
Right.
Every time we drive by, he tenses up and he looks over. And I didn't notice it, but I started noticing it. And I said, why do you tense up every time we drive by? And he says, because I'm afraid every single time we drive by there that a bullet is going to fly through the air, fly through our car, and kill both of us.
The same bullet?
The same bullet. And
through your head and then through his.
Like, it's just like bullets are going to fly and they're going to kill us as we drive by the firing range. And this is his real fear.
I mean, I would think about it, but it like maybe once, and then I'd be like, I don't know. I know that feeling though. I know it's gotta be, I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
I feel bad for people with this.
Yeah. It's really exhausting because when we go into a situation, he immediately distrusts. So I left I'm leaving, my family is coming to stay with us, and we're leaving our keys. And he's like, what if they damage the apartment? What if they lose the key? Like, he's constantly thinking of the things that can go wrong, and it's really tiring. Yeah.
It's exhausting.
So that's hypervigilant. Pleaser. I bet you have a bit of this.
You think? Do you want to know my numbers right now?
Yeah. What's your number for pleaser?
I didn't know you wanted to know my numbers now.
That's okay.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Okay. No, My pleaser is 8.8.
8.8.
Out
So
of 10.
anything above a 7 is something to look at. 6.97, something to look at. So pleaser, what is the pleaser? The pleaser is that we want acceptance, affection by helping, pleasing, rescuing, flattering other people. Right?
Yeah. This is basically my personality type.
Yeah, me too. We lose sight of our own needs and become resentful as a result. Right?
Yes.
So how does the pleaser affect your life?
Well, in general, I would say 9 out of 10 times it serves me really well.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy, the first book we ever did was, what the hell was it?
We did a book, Anthony DeMello.
Yeah. Anthony DeMello. What was the book's name?
Awakenings.
So I am 100%. I enjoy taking care of people. Like, it's selfish. Like, I love to make people feel good.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I really, really enjoy it. So 9 out of 10 times it feels really good. But there is every 10th time where I'm like, oh my fucking God, like, what is wrong with this person?
Yeah.
They don't care as much as, and I start to like, it's just weird. And I've learned that is part of my problem, not their problem. And like, I've actually, like, not through doing this, anything like this, but it's just naturally, I've seen my own pattern and realized that I'm giving too much. And that's why I'm resentful. So now I have to, like, keep my ass in check all the time, because I just want to fix everything and make everyone's life better. I genuinely do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it comes from my mom being depressed. And, she was super young mom, and she had depression issues, and she had, like, drinking issues. And I would be wanting to make sure she was not unhappy, so she wouldn't start drinking.
Yes. And here's where we learn as children. And I guarantee this happened to you, because it happened to me. Mommy's sad. Lizzy does something to make mommy smile. Lizzy is then responsible for mommy's happiness.
Yes.
And that's what happens. And we take that.
And my mom will admit that.
Yeah. That becomes coded in our brain. I am responsible for people's happiness. Yeah. Right. Yeah. What ends up happening is, that's fine. Our, like I said, our saboteurs have helped us a lot in life. Like, I am super happy I'm a pleaser because I genuinely love making people happy. And I'm like, as a trainer, like, it's been a huge plus for me. What happens
I got to tell you what happened. My mom said it at lunch one time. I was talking about a friendship of mine that was going sideways. And she goes, why don't you, I wonder this, why don't you pick friendships that are worth who you are? And then I started doing research, and I thought, oh my God, Mom, it's your fault I don't do that. Of course, she was just
hold up a mirror.
I was like, wait, like, you taught me that I had to give to get loved. And it wasn't because she loved me no matter what, but to be an active verb love, like, for her to be up and being my mom. Yeah. I felt like I needed to make her happy.
Yeah.
So it was funny. And like, she's so good about, like, letting me work that out because she was just a child when she had me.
Yeah, like, absolutely.
You
just don't know. So, like, now, I mean, we're spoiled because now there's so many resources for people to get better. But at the time there wasn't any. And, the pleaser, where it affects, for example, me, is like, I have to negotiate my rates very often as a facilitator, as a trainer. And the person I was training or facilitating or coaching would be like, can I get a discount? Can I pay you this much? And I'd be like, sure, even though it was like way below my bottom line. So that was where I was like, huh. And then I would be resentful because I'm like working for way below what I'm supposed to be getting. Yeah. And, like, things like that. So it's interesting.
I think a lot of moms have it. And I think a lot of like taking on, they want to make everything better for everybody and they just end up empty as hell.
Yes. Yeah. You lose sight of your own needs, you become resentful as a result, right?
Yep.
So this is a big one. Another one is restless. So I have a touch of this. This is constantly in search of the greater excitement in the next activity or constant busyness. So I'm always looking for something new, what's the next shiny object? What's the next thing I can do?
I rated higher than I should on this one.
What did you rate?
I'm at 7.5 on this one. I rated high on like 5, like borderline 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
So the defense mechanism here is distraction by activities, distracting me from the pain or from whatever it is, right?
Okay.
Where it could get in the way is we're great starters, but we don't finish. Like, I'm amazed that we have hit this many episodes in our podcast and we're so consistent with it, because that's not something somebody restless would do. But we have every so often, like, hey, let's change the format. Let's do this. Let's try this. Right.
Yeah.
So we do have that, which I think can keep things exciting, but where it gets us in trouble is we sometimes don't finish. We're sometimes we take on too many things.
Way too many things.
Yeah.
Way too many things.
Because
my mom said
we're excited about lots of things, right?
She's like, you thrive in being spread so thin.
Yeah.
And I really do. Like, I don't like to have not a lot going on. I've had to retrain myself, because what I was doing is, I think a good like red flag, if you have this and you don't want to take the test or whatever, is if you constantly say you're busy. And so like, maybe you are busy, but that means you have this, right?
Yeah.
So I started to tell myself, you need to hate that word. You need to take pride in being comfortable, like being like having a life that is peaceful.
Yeah.
So restless is like right in my wheelhouse. That's one of my favorite things about myself.
Well, here's the deal. It's a lot of these things. These aren't like, it's not black and white. It's not like if you have this is bad. It's just to the point where it gets a little too much, right? So it becomes a little overwhelming, but to a certain degree, we did this research in my company where everyone took the test, and then percentage wise, we presented who has what. And the entire management board has restless, which is great because they're constantly looking for new ideas. And that's how companies grow, right? So that's a wonderful thing. It's wonderful to be restless and be a business person, because you get, you have tons of ideas and you keep going and
you don't settle.
And you're and as a mom, you have to multitask. But the point where you're completely burned out because it's almost too much and you feel that sense of overwhelm, that's where you have to look at it.
I do get that sometimes. I do. And like, I'm always like, okay, well, this is part of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. You ready to hear some more?
Yes. This is fun.
This is interesting. Yeah. So we have the stickler. I don't have a lot of this. This is perfectionist. So this is somebody who needs everything to be perfect, organized. It needs to be ordered. So one way that I can share, because I have a friend who is a stickler, and we sometimes do trainings together. Sometimes as a trainer, you have to go off piste. Like something in the group isn't going right. So you're like, you have to pivot and change. It's impossible for her to go off script. She's she cannot go off script, where I'm like, I live off of script. Like I live off script. I can't go on script.
So I scored 7.5 on stickler, and I think I'm a recovering 9.5.
Okay. So you have this perfectionism.
Well, I mean, my bed is like military made. Like, I think Scarlett's the reason that I'm not a 9.5 on this, because I do like things to be perfect.
Yeah.
Like
Your house is immaculate. When I was there, I was like,
well, and I probably was worried that it wasn't.
Oh,
so I am in recovery of this. And you know what put me into recovery is motherhood.
Mm,
Because you have to make a choice between fucking up your kid
yeah.
and being a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And it was a tough choice, like I have to say. But it's just I think a lot of people are sticklers in life. I really do. And it, like, if you can't stand the idea of failing, this is where it's going to be.
Yeah. And the stickler, the perfectionist, is a defense mechanism, because sometimes, you can call people out on their shit and they will not be able to accept it because it means they're not perfect.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's very scary.
It is very scary.
Like that
Lady
image
we're gonna bring
that
up
people have of me is going to be tarnished. Oh no,
Lady Gaga, I mean, Madonna kind of like came out, or like came to Lady Gaga about something. And I think a good idea of a stickler, maybe something that we could watch out for and give grace for, is she said, Madonna and I are not alike. She's like, I fail. I embrace my imperfections. And if you look at Madonna's face, like she's got herself completely perfect in her face. Like she's got filler and stuff like that. No judgment.
Yeah.
You do you. But that's a good, like, if you're not willing to even age a little bit, you might be a stickler, right?
Yeah, you might be a stickler. You might be a stickler. Yeah, I need to look perfect.
I need to look perfect. I can't have anything wrong with me.
Yeah.
And like if you get nervous when you go out and you don't look 100%, you might be a stickler.
Yeah, I have a friend who has a husband who, like, if she's going out and she doesn't look perfect, he'll point it out. Like, they need to look absolutely perfect when they go out. And I'm like, I don't know how she does it. Like, I just don't know how she does it. But she needs, like, he'll mention, like, that's wrinkled, or your hair's not looking right, or something like this. It's just this need for control and perfectionism. That's taken a little too far, right?
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I think I think that I see a lot of that with the family image. If you want your children to be perfect, you want to be perfect. And then I also see people who don't have zero stickler in them. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, it's
crazy.
There's that meme with the fucking cracked ass fingernails, and it's like, don't trust this bitch. This bitch don't care about nothing.
She don't give a shit. I'm like, I'll look at him, I'll be like, God damn, like you're free.
Yeah.
You're a free bird. Good for you.
Yeah. It's that part where, again, it's good to be ordered and, want to look nice, but it's that part where you start criticizing yourself or others,
Yeah.
Where that's where it starts sabotaging. Okay. We got the victim. I fucking hate the saboteur and people who have it. Emotional and temperamental is a way to get attention and affections. These are the drama queens of your life. These are the people who always have some kind of fucking crisis.
I got 3.8 on victim.
I got like 2.1. I don't like this at all. Like, for me, feelings are not facts, whatever. Like, but like, this is like that martyr streak. This is somebody who's always, I'm sure you guys have this, the friend who's always in crisis.
Oh yeah. No, I see it a lot in death. Like if you've had a death in your life.
Yeah.
Because like I had Jacob die, and I have framed that in my life to, if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have been able to love people so well. But I see people when somebody really important to them dies, and chances are good that that's going to happen to all of us at some point, but they are obsessed with that death, and they're obsessed with how upset they are about it. And like, your child is one thing, but like I see it in death, and like wanting to be sad and wanting to be, low. And it's like,
well, they're making it about them.
Yeah.
They're making it all about them. And I see people do this. Okay, loved ones, fair enough. You can ride that the loved one's death pity train, but people like, my friend died, and like it's not even a close friend, or like, you know what I'm saying? And they will ride that wave to gain sympathy or affection or attention. Right?
What is that? What happens in childhood that makes that happen?
I am not sure. This is one I haven't explored that much, but maybe they only got attention when they were crying.
Okay.
Or they only got attention when something bad was happening. Otherwise, they didn't get attention. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe they were ignored until some dramatic thing happened. And then they were loved and cuddled. So they started using that as a way to gain affection.
Okay. Yeah. I'm seeing that. Like, I know some major victims, and you'll see that in a lot of poor communities.
Yeah. And I see that at
really
at work a lot. Like when I used to work in a corporation, like there would be mass layoffs, and there was always the group of people like, why me? And I'm like, there's mass layoffs. Like, it's not fucking about you. It's about the budget. Like, fuck off. You know, why is this happening to me? You know?
Yeah. So it's like, okay. The victim is the hardest to get out of, I bet.
Oh yeah. It's the whole why me thing, you know, and I just have no patience. I have like the littlest patience for the victim. Like, I don't like it. I'm always like, get off the cross. We need the wood. Like, move it.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Yeah. It's one of the hardest to be around, because you're like, okay, bad things are happening to everybody.
Yeah. It's not all about you. Right. Yeah. So that's the victim. Then we have the avoider. I have this like 1,000%. Like, this is very high for me. This is focusing on the positive and pleasant in an extreme way and avoiding difficult and unpleasant tasks. So, okay, so the pleaser wants you to be happy, so it'll do everything to make you happy. The avoider wants just to be comfortable and happy, so they will avoid doing anything uncomfortable.
This is Jason's move. This is Jason.
He's the avoider. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, he doesn't want to make eye contact with it because he doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's not that, like, he just doesn't want to do, and that's like his family kind of existed like that. Yeah. So they didn't want to make eye contact with things. But it's been so funny because I care so much about his happiness. I won't let him avoid. Like, I'm so much of a pleaser.
Yeah.
That I won't let him avoid.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, I have like 100%, like, this is a defense mechanism, like, just avoid it. Like, and it won't. This is how I got into massive debt, because I would like avoid the issue. Like, I was a huge avoider. Like, if I ignore it, it'll just go away. Like,
that probably didn't work out very well.
It didn't. Yeah, it doesn't work out very well. I mean, I actually got fired. Well, I'm glad I got fired because I didn't like that job anyway, but I got fired from a job because I refused to do any admin. They're like, you need to fill in your KPIs. I'm like,
Yeah, I hate admin too.
So that's mine. I definitely have a bit of this avoider. Do you have any avoider in your profile?
I have a solid 5.
You have a solid.
So I will avoid, but I mean, if I have to.
No, I think, yeah, go ahead.
My mom was very sick recently, and I knew, like, it was bad, and I didn't want to go to her house, and I could feel myself not wanting to make eye contact with it and just like freaking out. And I remember, like, God, you're avoiding, like, what are you doing? Like this, I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't get myself not to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, like, I think I know you pretty well, and what I love about you is that you will not back down from conflict, though. Like, you will call people out, and I love that about you.
In loving way, I hope. I try to do it in a loving way, but like, there are people who cannot hear love if they're being told anything bad, or if they're being like I've noticed that there's got to be the stickler situation, but like, I'll be saying, I love you, so I'm very concerned about this with you. This is a problem. And all they hear is, you have a problem.
Yeah, that might be they're stickler. It also might be an avoider on their part. Like they're avoiding, it could be a combination, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, there's 3 more. So controller, this is this anxiety-based need to take charge and control situations, people. It should be done my way. It has to be done this way. I have a bit of this. It's not like it doesn't, control my life. Because I think when I got sober, I had to give up that control to some higher power. So
Yeah. Well, I'm an 8.1 on this.
okay, so that's pretty high. Yeah.
It's really high. And I'm going to tell you, if people would do things the way I told them to do it, their life would be better.
Absolutely.
And I know that's not right.
So
I realize that's not right.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that. It's just when I guess, like, I've been through a lot in my life. And it's like, I feel like Tony Soprano. I'm like the hawk and I can see the rat like going the wrong way on the ground.
Yeah.
And before I would just eat the rat.
Yeah.
And like just tear into him because he's not doing it right. Now I just watch him go into the wrong place. It's like, it sucks to be a controller.
It really sucks because it's like you think, okay, I've already done it. So like, I'm just going to save you the time and the energy of making those mistakes.
They don't want that.
And people need their mistakes. Like that's the one thing I learned, like something my mentor said when I was back when early sobriety, I was still a controller. And she's like, you need to let people have their spiritual experiences. And that includes pain. And I was like, whoa, like that I'm actually stopping people from having a spiritual experience because I'm not allowing them to get to feel some pain. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because I was trying to control the results of everything. And yeah, it's tiring being the controller.
It's really exhausting. And it's because like, when I grew up, my household wasn't stable, so I really had to be in control. I mean, I was like, there was a lot of times I was in charge of things I shouldn't have been in charge of.
Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
I realize it hasn't served me well. And sometimes I fall into a controlling way again. And then I have to like lock my shit up.
Yeah.
So bad.
It's what's most important is recognizing it. We have a neighbor. I laugh so hard because he has dinner parties a lot. And he will invite people over and tell them where to sit and in what order to eat food. And I'm always like, Jesus Christ.
I love it.
It's his controller is really high up there.
You're like, being around a controller, sometimes I feel more secure around it.
Yeah.
Because they like know what they're doing.
Yeah. And that's interesting that you say that because again, when we did this with my organization, all the heads of had restless, controller, and the next one, which is hyperachiever. So hyperachiever is, I have this quite a bit, performance, achievement for self-respect and validation, like achieving things makes me feel good about myself. Where it gets to be a problem is these unsustainable workaholic tendencies. Workaholism. I have this, like, I'm like going here, I'm going there, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, so yeah. Yeah.
Well, you like to do well.
I like to do well.
And I like that about you. It's one of my favorite things. I'm like, when she does something, she does it well.
Yeah. Yeah, so hyperachiever, like the achievement, the problem is sometimes we'll forget about family, rest, emotional needs, like constantly working, constantly checking emails over the weekends, working till very late.
I see a lot of hyperachievers.
Yeah.
I really do. And they're probably the ones that got praised for like achievements only.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's one of the worst things you can do to a kid. Is talk only about their grades or whatever, like what they achieved instead of talking about their work and their ethics and their character. It's like, it's a shitty thing to do. And I see it a lot.
Yeah, I do too. And I think maybe that's where it comes from. Like, we don't feel love. And then we bring home the good report card, or we bring home, guess what? I'm president of the student class. And then we get the love. Yeah. It's all about love. And it's all about where we, weren't getting the love.
And where our acceptance is coming from.
Yeah.
Where our acceptance is coming from. It's all about acceptance as a child.
Exactly. Yeah. So interesting. And then the final one, this one I have 0 of. It's the hyper-rational.
I don't even think that was on my test. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm 4.4. I'm not rational at all.
Yeah. It's hyper-rational, intense, exclusive focus on the rational processing of everything, including relationships. So they're cold, distant, not really in touch with other people's emotions, intellectually arrogant, kind of like not really a whole lot of emotional intelligence there. I mean, these people are great as like financial directors, or people who have to make really cold decisions, or doctors. Like, God bless a hyper-rational doctor who just has to make those tough decisions. But where it can get in the way is like, if somebody's going through an emotion, they have a hard time relating, being empathetic, this type of thing. Yeah.
Okay. I know a lot of people who are hyper-rational.
Yeah.
And I think that in an argument, I can get hyper-rational. I'll start to like, that's not a good thing. And I use it as a defense mechanism for sure. But I think hyper-rational people they're know-it-alls.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, sometimes the mystery and beauty of the world is like, I work with a lot of in sobriety. Like, I believe in a higher power, and I believe in miracles. And
yeah, I do too.
It's really hard to work with a hyper-rational who's like, God does not exist, like, and where I'm like, well, there's this miracle that happened, and I share the miracle, and it's like a miracle, Yeah. And they're trying to find a rational explanation for something that can't, so that takes some of the beauty and mystery out of the world, I think. But
I think that it's been proven over and over that, having this is where I'm going to say it. Like, I don't know any of us that know everything. And it's like, you don't know what happens after you die.
Yeah.
You have no idea. There are things you just don't know. So being too rational is a red flag.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's
like, you can't know everything.
Yeah. And that hyper-rational, exactly. That's why hyper, like, rational is fine, but like the hyper-rational where it's just taken too far. Yeah.
Yep. Wow.
So those are the saboteurs.
Well, thank you. I've learned a lot. And I basically, while we were doing this, I wrote down everybody I loved, what their problems are. No, I'm just kidding. That would be the judge.
Yeah. So part 2 of this series on saboteurs is going to be the solution for these saboteurs. So
okay,
we're going to do a part 2, and we're going to talk about, okay, now that I have identifying the saboteurs is 80% of the work. So if you've identified your saboteurs, great. But then there's other little things that we can do to help combat these saboteurs.
I love it. So listen next week for the solution.
See you next Tuesday.
All right. See you next Tuesday. Thanks for joining us this week on We Need Help, the podcast, the duct tape of self-help.
Please visit our website, weneedhelpthepodcast.com, where you can find links to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and all the others, so you'll never miss a show.
You'll also find links to the books we've reviewed and our amazing store.
If you enjoy this podcast, go right now, because if you're anything like us, you'll never do it later. Like and share our page and episodes on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or just tell a friend about the show. That would help us out too.
Also, feel free to let us know what you need help with, and we'll try to cover it in a future episode. You can also find us on Instagram at weneedhelp_the podcast.
Thank you for listening.